Chair Stone, we are live.
Thank you very much. I'll wait till committee members show up. Excellent. Is Councillor Fitzgerald with us?
I don't see him in the attendees screen, but I will keep an eye and move him in when he arrives.
Okay. I may have to move the movers and seconders around. But in any case, I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the hearing. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. The procedures for the meeting are as per the town's procedural bylaw and the electronic meeting protocol during emergencies. And I do confirm we have quorum without Councillor Fitzgerald. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. There you are, Mr. Fitzgerald. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions toward real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. I have a motion moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated September 15, 2021 be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes dated August 11, 2021, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public meetings to consider applications for minor variances to the zoning bylaw. The input received by agencies, public, and staff is important in order for the committee to make sound planning decisions. The procedure to be followed in these meetings will be as follows. A brief explanation of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or the representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. Please note the presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Once the hearing is concluded, the input received will be considered by the committee prior to making a decision on the applications. If you wish to be notified of a decision of the committee, you must file a written request for notification. And now Kelsey is going to speak to us about the Twistego at 31 Europe Lane.
Great, thank you so much. I'll just set up my screen. Is everyone able to see that?
We can.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 31 Europe Lane. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned Shoreline Residential 3, exception 1804. The site-specific exemption states the minimum front yard requirement for the dwelling shall be 30 meters. All land shown in the crosshatch schedule 933 shall be subject to site plan control, and no site alteration will be permitted until site plan has been registered. The application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 67 square meter flat roof boathouse within type 1 fish habitat. A minor variance is required to reduce the front yard setback for type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 0 meters for the boathouse only, to reduce the western interior side yard setback from 12 meters to 8 meters for a flat roof boathouse, and to permit a private open sitting area on the flat roof boathouse to extend 1 meter beyond the perimeter of the boathouse walls. For context, the subject property was created along with the neighboring properties in 2008 through consent and a zoning bylaw amendment applications involving 288 West Browns Road. Environmental investigations were conducted in support of these previous planning applications, and recommendations relating to the location of the docking facilities on each severed lots were provided. The site plan process was later used to ensure these recommendations were implemented in the site development process. In this case, the future docking facility was approved under site plan control. Reviewing the official plan, the waterfront designation anticipates linear, low-density shoreline residential development that respects the character and the natural setting. In this instance, the proposed boathouse will be in keeping with the surrounding waterfront residential development character, and the property is within 30 meters outside of the 30-meter setback from the shoreline, protecting and screening from view vegetation. Additionally, natural constraint mapping identifies type 1 fish habitat abutting the proposed development. To address this natural constraint, and the report was completed by Riverstone and was submitted to support the application. The Riverstone assessment reported that there is type 1 fish habitat on the eastern side of the lot and type 2 fish habitat in the proposed location, where it's most suitable for the boathouse development. In considering the potential impacts of the boathouse, Riverstone found the proposed construction will have no significant change in the quality of fish habitat, physical structure, and water quality fronting the subject property as compared to the existing conditions, if sited in the proposed location with revegetation and construction mitigation measures. The recommended mitigation measures are outlined in the Riverstone assessment and shall be implemented through site plan amendment, should the site minor variance be approved. The application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act and to the Fairy Lake Association. 2 letters of support were provided for the application and were attached to the report package. The application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have 1 hand raised. Please note that during the transition, your video panel will be momentarily interrupted. Once you've been added to the meeting, your video will appear in the committee panel. Please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and please do confirm your name and mailing address.
Morning, committee. John P. Gallagher here on behalf of the applicant. My address is 24 Hibbard Road, Huntsville, P1H 1C9. I think Kelsey has outlined the application quite well. I just want to bring your attention to a few items. First, the structure itself is approximately about 720 square feet. And as Kelsey had mentioned, we did have to do a fisheries assessment to identify the area of type 2. When the lots were originally created through the severance process, and I worked on that project many moons ago, Milkowski Nielsen provided a fisheries and environmental report as to how the lands could develop. And it's good to see that what we were doing back then has been brought into most zoning bylaws and official plans throughout Muskoka. The report, the Milkowski report, did identify that location as where docking should occur. And it was accompanied with a 5126 agreement that was registered on title to the lands, which the town implemented at the time of severance. It is a desirable use for the waterfront. Many waterfront properties use boathouses to protect their boats and provide a place to gather at the water's edge. The owner applied for and obtained his site plan approval in 2019 for his dwelling prior to construction. And he's just wrapping up his construction of the single-family dwelling. Variance is minor in the fact that the location of the boathouse is in an area that does not impact on the type 1 fish habitat. The impact on the adjacent properties is minimal, given that the building is set back 9 meters from the west property line extension, and the boathouse sits at a lower elevation. When you look at the lay of the land there, there is a drop down towards the water right at the last part of the land water interface. And so it allows this one-story structure to actually sit a lot lower. The location of the boathouse on the east side is on the property to the east is on the west side of that lot, which is quite a distance away. The setback with respect to the type 1 fish habitat have been reviewed by biologists, and the recommendations they've proposed will be implemented through the amendment to the site plan on the subject lands. The normal setback for a boathouse is 6 meters and 12 meters when you have a sitting area above. Because we're using the roof as a sitting area, it actually allows for lesser impact because you don't have the height of the roof of the building interfering with any visuals, etc. Also, just wanted to bring to the attention that the structure itself only represents 12.5% of the shoreline. The width of the boathouse is 24 feet, where 50 feet shoreline activity area frontage is permitted. The town has approved similar variances along this stretch, basically in accordance with the same requirements of the Milkowski report, and had required updates to that report prior to making their decisions made. Proposal keeps the intent of the zoning as a boathouse is a permitted use. It is in accordance with the locations identified previously and the new report. The zoning setback of 6 meters was in place at the time and has legally existed on site for many years. The zoning on the subject lands also requires a 30-meter setback, and I think the photos that you just saw show my client's maintenance of his shoreline activity and basically the site as a whole. He's got a lot of natural vegetation that's being retained there. The proposal does not offend any other of the zone provisions for the specific zoning. It's in keeping with the official plan, as we're ensuring that it does not impact on the type 1 habitat. The existing site plan identifies the existing buffers. A professional technical review supports the location. Built form does not dominate the shoreline, the natural vegetation does. This area would have the least impact on the waterfront. The overall coverage is about 0.5% for the accessory structures, whereas 5 is the permitted. My client had discussed the proposal with neighbors on either sides, and I believe you were given letters of support from those neighbors. The District of Muskoka has no objection to the application, and we support staff in their recommendation to approve it. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and I believe my client may want to say a couple of words. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Did you mention your client wanted to speak?
He may, if he puts his hand up.
Okay. In the meantime, I will go to the public and ask if there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thanks very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? All right. Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that minor variance application A31 2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.5.1 and 3.1.18.9 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to reduce the setback from type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 0 meters for a 67 square meter boathouse only. Reduce the western interior side yard setback from 12 meters to 8 meters for the flat roof boathouse. Permit the private open sitting area on the flat roof boathouse to extend 1 meter beyond the perimeter of the boathouse walls. Conditional on no vegetation removal within the shoreline activity area along the steep slope area adjacent to the shoreline to the top of bank, with the exception of the path that accesses the dock/boathouse. And all of the recommendations contained within the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental, Inc., being implemented through site plan control. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks, John. All right, Kelsey, you're going to speak to 18 St. Andrew's Circle.
Yes, thank you. I'll just set up my screen. Great. Is everyone able to see that?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 18 St. Andrew's Circle. The lot is designated Hidden Valley Recreational Resort Residential and is zoned Residential 1, exception 0559. The exception zone states that the minimum, the application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 37.2 square meter detached garage. A minor variance is required to permit the garage to be located closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling. The site-specific exception reduces the minimum lot area and frontage, permits a maximum height of accessory structures of 5 meters, and a minimum setback for any parking area from a public highway. Additionally, a minor variance, 18/2011, granted further exception to reduce the minimum setback from the road to the parking area, reduce the minimum front yard setback, reduce the minimum rear yard setback, and reduce the minimum setback to the top of slope, reduce the setback from the base of steep slopes, and permit construction on steep slopes. The town zoning bylaw requires detached garage be located no closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling. The purpose of this provision is to ensure adequate setbacks and sightlines, and that sightlines are maintained, and further that street presence and character is consistent. The applicant explains that the narrow width of the lot made it difficult to site the detached garage in a compliant location while allowing vehicle access. The proposed garage will comply with the front yard setback and is in a well-vegetated buffer at the road while appropriately screening the proposed garage, mitigating potential adverse impacts with respect to visual, traffic, and safety impacts. Regarding the official plan, the subject property is designated recreational resort residential. Within this designation, permitted uses shall limit low and medium density residential and short-term rental accommodation uses. The continued residential use on the subject property is in keeping with the policies of the town's official plan. The application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. No concerns or objections have been raised. The application would appear to conform with the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff are recommending approval. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press star 9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
All right then, committee members, any comments or questions? Seeing none. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that minor variance application A32-2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.1 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to permit a 37.2 square meter detached garage to be located closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling. All in favor? And that's carried. Moving right along. Kelsey, you're going to speak to the con application at 835 Stevenson Road 2.
Yes, thank you. Just set my screen again. Perfect. I believe that's sharing. Awesome. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 835 Stevenson Road 2 East. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned Shoreline Residential 1 and Natural Resource. The application has been submitted to permit a 72.5 square meter two-story garage. A minor variance is required to permit an increase in the maximum building area for a two-story garage from 60 meters squared to 72.5 meters squared. The general provisions of the town's zoning bylaw permit two-story garages, detached garages within the SR1 zone with a maximum footprint of 60 square meters. The purpose of this provision is to ensure shoreline development is of appropriate scale to reduce visual impacts and overdevelopment along the shoreline. The proposed garage is compliant with all other required setbacks and the lot coverage. Additionally, the garage is sited on a large, well-vegetated lot, which results in no visual impacts from the road or water. The garage is also in keeping with the waterfront designation, which anticipates linear, low-density residential development that respects the character and natural setting of the waterfront area. Within the official plan, natural constraint mapping also shows type 1 habitat along the river, the Muskoka River EC, abutting the development. The proposed garage is outside of the 30-meter front yard setback required for structures on land abutting type 1 fish habitat, mitigating potential risks to this habitat. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. No concerns or objections were raised. The application would appear to conform with intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. Thank you very much again, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press star 9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have one hand raised. So I will bring them into the meeting now. A reminder to please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and please confirm your name and mailing address.
Good morning. My name is Les Hess. I'm at 11 James Street in Seguin, Ontario. I'm representing Mr. Khan, the applicant. I just want to say thank you to Kelsey for a great job of presenting. I don't really have any additional comments. She's done a good job at that. And I think Mr. Khan is also available today just for any questions that you might have moving forward.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that wishes to speak to this application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press star 9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Before I go to committee, I have a couple questions actually, and I'm going to ask Kelsey. So I didn't see a primary dwelling on the property, and I understand you can't build a garage before the primary residence. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. They already went through site plan control for the dwelling. So my understanding, and this could, Mr. Khan or Mr. Hess could address this. I understand that the principal dwelling will be constructed before the garage.
All right. And my second question is, will there be habitable space above the garage?
At this point, no, but the lot is large enough to permit a cabin above the garage if they intended to do that in the future. But at this point, no habitable space will be above the garage.
All right. Thanks very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? Mr. Donald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. And just a comment, in the event that there is a request for habitable space above the garage, does that have to be approved by the town in some form?
Kelsey?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it would have to go through a site plan amendment and a permit as well.
No other comments or questions? Fine. Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald, be it resolved that minor variance application A34 2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.3C to permit an increase in the building area of a two-story detached garage from 60 square meters to 72.5 square meters, conditional on the original Shore Road allowance being stopped up, closed, and sold to the landowner. Any comments? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Kelsey, I think this is your last one, the Dawes and McGarvey at 240 Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you very much. This is the last one for me. I'll just share my screen. Great. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 240 Shoemaker Lane. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned Shoreline Residential 1. The application has been submitted to permit an 89 square meter two-story garage. A minor variance is required to permit an increase in the maximum building area for two-story garage from 60 meters to 89 square meters. The general provision, as mentioned in the town's bylaw, permits a two-story garage within the Shoreline Residential 1 zone with a maximum footprint of 60 square meters. As mentioned in my previous report, the purpose of this provision is to ensure the shoreline development is of appropriate scale to reduce visual impacts and prevent overdevelopment along the shoreline. The proposed garage in this case is compliant with all other setbacks and with the lot coverage provision for accessory buildings. Additionally, the garage is well located on a well-vegetated lot, resulting in no visual impacts from the road and on the water, minimal visual impacts. The garage is also in conformity with the waterfront designation, as the garage reflects the scale of the dwelling and surrounding waterfront residential character. The garage is sited in the most appropriate location, as it will replace a utility shed in an already cleared portion of the property. The official plan's natural constraint mapping also identifies steep slopes on the property, on the portion of the lot. As the garage will be sited away from these steep slope areas, there is no concern with respect to the protection of this constraint. The type 1 fish habitat abutting the shoreline is unevaluated. However, as the proposed garage is 30 meters back from the shoreline of Clark Lake, any risk to potential fish habitat will be appropriately mitigated. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and to the Lake Wasiosa Ratepayers Association. One letter of support was received for the application and attached to the report package. The building department also provided the following comment that no habitable space be located within the garage area without septic evaluation. A condition has been added to the report to prohibit habitable space above this detached garage. The application would appear to conform with the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Calling the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button or press star 9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
All right. Members of the public that wish to speak to this application.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button or press star 9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thanks very much. Kelsey, I don't know if you got it, but about 4 minutes before the meeting started, I thought there was a letter that came in. Did Richard?
Oh, thank you for notifying me. I did not.
I didn't have a chance to read it. I just saw that it was for Shoemaker.
I'm just going through my email now. I did not receive a comment. If anyone would be able to
All right.
send that to me.
All right. Did we? Right. Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Members of committee, any comments or questions? Oh, you're pretty easy going today. All right. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A35-2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.3C to permit an increase in building area of a 2-story detached garage from 60 square meters to 89 square meters, conditional on no habitable space being permitted within the detached garage. Comments, questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelsey. Now that all comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above applications to be concluded. We will now move into the non-public portion of the meeting to deal with consent applications. If the applicant or their agent wishes to make comments regarding their application, please raise your hand after the presentation. Repeat instructions 2, page 2 for applicants. No, I won't. All right. Richard, you're speaking to the Chamberlain application.
That is correct. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just turn on my screen and start sharing. And I'm wondering if you can confirm you can see that?
Not yet. You're coming. It says you've started your screen, but I haven't seen. There we go. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So once again, through you, Mr. Chair, the subject property is located at 49 Bridgedale Crescent. And the application, as you noted, is B20-2020 HTE Chamberlain, and it's a concurrent application with a zoning bylaw amendment that will be going to Planning Committee later this afternoon. The lot has an approximate area of 3,716 square meters with 61 meters of frontage on Bridgedale Crescent. The lands are zoned residential 1 and are designated community residential in the official plan. The lands are also within the Port Sydney Community Settlement Area. The consent application is to create one new residential lot with approximately 858 meters squared area and 30.5 meters of frontage on Bridgedale Crescent. So create this lot on Bridgedale Crescent with an approximate area of 185 square meters. The retained lands would be identical in area and frontage and would contain the existing 180.8 square meter dwelling. It should be noted that a concurrent application, as I noted earlier, to rezone the lands will be considered at Planning Committee later this afternoon. And the purpose of this application is to facilitate the lot creation by changing the zoning on the lot from a residential 1 zone to a residential 1 zone with an exception to reduce the required lot frontage from 60 to 30 meters and reduce the required lot area from 1 hectare to 1,858 meters squared. The zoning bylaw amendment is necessary as a minimum of 60 meters of lot frontage and 1 hectare of lot area is required in the zoning bylaw for a lot on private services. A condition due to the fact that the requested zoning bylaw amendment is still pending, a condition should have been recommended by staff to address this outstanding zoning matter, but you would not see that in the recommendation. So staff are suggesting an amended resolution to address this, which I believe Julie has discussed with you, Mr. Chair. Community settlement areas, according to the official plan, community settlement areas represent areas in Huntsville where intensification, redevelopment, and regeneration are encouraged to strengthen and support the vitality, growth, and prosperity of these historic areas. To protect the character of such areas, development should be designed in a manner that reflects the existing built form in terms of their height, building mass, and character. And within the community residential designation, lot and density requirements have been defined for all new lots to help protect such character. In this instance, the proposal will create a lot that will meet the minimum frontage requirement in the official plan for the community residential designation, but not lot areas, which are a minimum of 0.4 hectares in the community residential area. However, the proposed lot area is similar in size to other existing lots in the surrounding neighborhood. It should be noted that a public meeting relating to the concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application was held last summer on July 21st, 2020. And at that time, a recommendation from staff was considered premature given outstanding technical matters relating to an adjacent wetland and its identification and protection, a wildland fire hazard mitigation concern, and sustainable accommodation of private individual on-site water and sewage services. A memo prepared by Frycorp Ecological Services has since been submitted to the town to address concerns related to wetland identification and protection. This is where the wetland is. And a memo prepared by Duke Engineering was submitted to address concerns relating to site suitability from a servicing perspective. The Frycorp memo documented conditions on site and supported by borehole analysis that found no evidence of glaying in soils in the location of the proposed septic system and the rear lot line. As such, the report concluded that wetlands exist, that no wetlands exist on the severed lot. The report did not delineate wetlands off-site, but did make visual observations based on site conditions at the time of the author's site visit that no wetlands exist within 30 meters of the rear lot line. A precautionary approach has been agreed upon between staff and the applicant to ensure that potential wetlands to the rear of the proposed severed lot, as mapped in our official plan, would be adequately protected through special site-specific provisions in the zoning bylaw. And what I'm referring to there is a 5-meter rear yard buffer. The Duke engineering report noted the presence of a high water table on the site, as evidenced by a dug well currently servicing the retained lot, and recommended servicing options to address Ontario Building Code clearance requirements for wells and sewage systems. The report also noted that the additional lot proposed would have minimal, if any, effect on the relatively high static groundwater table in the area, and little to no effect on neighboring wells, given that it would be serviced by a new drilled well that would tap into a deeper groundwater source. No report was provided to address wildland fire mitigation, as it was noted on further review that the high-risk hazardous forest types for wildland fires, as mapped in the town's official plan, are actually located off-site. Further, it appears that the proposed lot, if created, would site a dwelling with a sufficient setback to accommodate both a buffer to the wetland and a vegetative break between the dwelling and any off-site hazard area. Site photos for your reference, showing the rear of the property and some of the areas that we are taking a precautionary approach to ensure are protected. This is looking to the east of the property on the rear lot line, the severed lot, and this is looking to the southeast at almost the rear corner of the retained lot. This is a shot looking northerly at the closest adjacent neighbor to the severed lot. And this is a shot of the frontage as it currently exists. Oops. These concurrent applications were circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act in July 2020. And in preparation for their further consideration today, both by the Committee of Adjustment and Planning Committee, additional notices were mailed to neighbors, and information respecting the further consideration of these matters was posted on the property and the town's website. Letters of objection and support received based on notices provided to date were contained in attachments 5 and 6 to our previous staff report. It's noted that 3 objections were received, and the objections raised in these submissions, 3 objections were received prior to today, and the objections raised in these submissions include general concerns about the proposed reduction of lot frontage and area, relating to the greater housing density in the area and the loss of privacy, loss of vegetative cover, and concerns relating to potential adverse impacts on water quality and existing private wells. These concerns have been addressed through the recommended vegetation retention measures that are in the zoning bylaw, and also within the technical memos that have been provided. With the additional information noted, the technical information noted, the applications now appear, I should also state, as Chair Stone noted, an additional set of comments was received early this morning and was provided to this committee. And it was from a group of previous objectors, and it identified continued concerns with respect to the reduction in lot area proposed for the severed lot, and the concern revolved around water quality and quantity issues and impacts on existing wells should the lot creation proceed. With the additional information noted above in the technical reports and the zoning provisions that have been put forward relating to buffers to wetlands and a tree vegetation buffer along the northern property line. It appears that the applications conform to the official plan and are consistent with the provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval. As noted earlier, staff are recommending a amended resolution be attached to this should committee approve this application, to attach conditions to the approval. And Chair Stone, I believe Julie would have that ready to go if you wanted to put on screen. And I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have.
Thanks very much. Can you tell me, there are other, you mentioned it in your report, but just confirm for me that the lot sizes that are proposed here are similar to other lot sizes in the area?
Yeah, so there are, it's a mix of larger lots that are equivalent in size to this, and then smaller lots that are equivalent to the proposed lot. So there are, if I go back and show you the screen, with the aerial photo, you'd see that if you want me to show that.
Sure, I'd like to see that.
Okay, 1 second.
Would you say this is a transition area, transitioning from larger lots to a more dense area? Or is this?
I'm not sure I'd call it a transitioning area. I think it's an area where it may be a stable neighborhood, but there could be potential for an application like this, given that the surrounding neighborhood is mixed in terms of lot areas.
Thank you.
But I haven't seen other other applications recently to call it a transitioning area.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. So this is the image I was referring to, Chair Stone, and you can see that the existing lot area is outlined in blue, and in really faint lines, you can also see surrounding properties that are more similar to the lot area that's being proposed. And then, of course, there's other larger lots, so it is really a mix.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Before I go to committee, I think the applicant may wish to speak to this. Is this correct?
Yes, the applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have one hand raised.
All right.
I'll move them into the meeting now. As a reminder, please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking. And please do confirm your name and mailing address.
Good morning, Savas.
Good morning, Chair Stone. My name is Savas Fratis, Plan Muskoka, PO Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H2K7. I'm here this morning as the agent, the applicants for this application. As Richard has noticed, has referred to already, this is a concurrent, this application is part of a concurrent package of applications that's come forward to the both the Planning Committee and the Committee of Adjustment. So my comments will probably be a little bit more focused on the law creation here, as this is what the decision is here today. The Planning Committee this afternoon will be dealing with the zoning matter on this, which deals a lot with the buffers that have been proposed by staff and they've been proposed bylaw that way. So I think just to reiterate a couple points that I think are important to the application, as noted, it's an infilling situation. So we're dealing with a lot being created in an existing neighborhood. And as has already been discussed, a lot of times one of the main focuses of our analysis is whether or not this lot would be consistent with the other lots in the neighborhood. I think Richard's map that he last showed sort of confirms that there are other lots in the area that are the same size and shape. And just to provide a little bit of history, if you actually look at the legal description of this property, it's considered 2 lots on an RD plan that was originally surveyed for the area. I think at some point in time, and I can't confirm whether this is the case or not because it goes probably way back, but they may have very well been laid down as 2 separate lots and somebody had purchased 2 and they had merged together, because it just seems pretty, it's pretty odd that all the neighborhood lots are 1 single lot in that area and this is a 2. So I think that's why you're seeing that this is sort of a double wide lot from in comparison to other lots in the neighborhood. The provincial policy statement has a lot of policy that speaks to infilling situations as a way of increasing housing stock in Ontario. They focus a lot on settlement areas such as Port Sydney. So they want to see this type of development occurring in these settlement areas and this type of intensification. I think this, based on the reports that have been provided and based on the existing character of the neighborhood, the way that this lot was ideally developed with all buildings sort of on the one side of it, with the other side of it primarily vacant, I think it awards itself the ability here to create this infilling situation, this intensification situation without, being out of character with the neighborhood and without creating a density that is not already established in this neighborhood. So I think I'll leave it at that. I will have more to say at the planning committee meeting because it deals more with the zoning matters. But in terms of lot creation, I think from a sort of a broad standpoint, those are sort of my primary comments on it. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
That's great. Thanks very much. And I will go to committee. Any comments or questions about the application? Mr. Donald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I guess through you to Richard. Generally in favor of the increasing the availability of housing and taking advantage of any opportunity to develop properties like this. Although anecdotal in its commentary, the letter that we received this morning with regards to the impact on water supply, that concerns me a little bit. And I know through you to Richard, there was comment about technical reports. I think it may have been from Duke Engineering with regard to water level. How does the town manage these types of concerns for the neighbourhood where further development may impinge on availability of water to existing residents?
Richard?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, good question. So the town has official plan policies that relate to lot creation within community residential areas. And not surprisingly, in a situation like this, those policies require that such lots must have sufficient and suitable area to adequately accommodate such services. So we typically ask for technical reports prepared by consultants working on behalf of the applicant in order to verify conformity with those policies. And in this instance, we did ask for such a report, and the Duke Engineering report has been submitted to say that there is adequate water supply, and if the well is completed in the deep aquifer, it shouldn't impact surrounding neighbors, and also looked at the relevant Ontario Building Code requirements regarding setbacks or clearances, they call them, to surrounding wells, and determined that this lot could be developed given the size that's being proposed without having impacts. And that report is stamped by a professional engineer. So we're relying on that in this instance.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad the question was asked, and thank you for that. We're doing our due diligence. Presumably there won't be any impact. And if there is, will we hear about it?
Is that a question?
Well, yeah, so we're doing our due diligence. We've had an engineer's report, and it says that there won't be a problem with a well for the neighbors. And if shortly after this development goes forward and there is problems, presumably they will come to the town and say, hey, there was an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I guess the concern for today's decision would be that we're making a decision about the creation of the lot, and we're doing it on the strength of the engineering report that was provided. And there's no suggestion, there was no peer review of that report. And there's no suggestion that there would be any monitoring. So if the decision of the committee is to approve the lot, then that would be the final decision. Of course, the zoning bylaw amendment application still needs to go forward, and similar issues would be discussed at that time.
Director Maxwell.
Thank you, Kirsten. I was just going to mention as well that historically, when we've been receiving development applications in areas where there have been questions about water quantity, they've usually been of a much larger scale, and we do, in some of those instances, implement policies that would require the wells to be monitored. Most recently, I believe there's a subdivision in Port Sydney off of Muskoka Road 10, the Pine Haven subdivision, where that was proposed, and that will be in place. So, and we've also done it for Woodland Heights historically when there's been a significant number of lots being proposed. But in situations where it's only 1 or 2 lots, we have not imposed anything additional.
That's great. Thanks for that. Any other comments or questions by committee? All right, then as Richard had mentioned, there's a bit of a housekeeping amendment here. So let me read the original one. Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment approve consent application B 18-2020 HTE for the creation of 1 new residential lot. And I won't ask for a decision on that. I'm going to have a motion to amend. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that the following words be inserted. Conditional on a registrable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The owner's taxes being in good standing, a site inspection fee of $235 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $180 being paid to the town of Huntsville, 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands, and the lands being rezoned for their intended use. Any comments or questions on the amendment? All in favor? And that carries the amendment. So the entire motion now is moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment approve consent application B 18-2020 HTE for the creation of 1 new residential lot, conditional on a registrable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan, the owner's taxes being in good standing, a site inspection fee of $235 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $180 being paid to the town of Huntsville, 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands, and the lands being rezoned for their intended use. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. With that, we've come to the end of this fun morning. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 9:59 a.m. All in favor? Done. Thanks, guys. See you later.